Welcome to Divcasts from the University of Chicago Divinity School. For more of our podcasts and information about our terms of use, please see our website, divinity.uchicago.edu/podcasts.
Okay, I'm going to actually turn over introduction of our guest speaker today to our dean. Dean Mitchell is going to introduce the guest, so please first join me in welcoming the dean, and then you can go on.
Thanks, Taryn. Thanks, everyone, for being here. What a pleasure it is for me to introduce Jan Deckenbach. Jan is the assistant paperback editor at the University of Chicago Press in acquisitions and publication here at our remarkable university press. She is a Hyde Park neighbor and citizen par excellence, who, among many forms of community engagement and leadership, is the director of the food pantry, the Hyde Park and Kenwood Hunger Programs. So she's my boss, which I really love. When there are questions at the front desk, I say, I need to go ask my boss. In that role, according to the website, what Jan Deckenbach does is she signs contracts with food donors, such as federal agency programs. She orders the food each month. She oversees volunteers and helps with pre-opening setup on Saturday mornings. Well, that comes nowhere near to what Jan Deckenbach does for our food pantry, which is located right here at Hyde Park Union Church at 56 between University and Woodlawn. Jan is the brains and the spirit of the food pantry. I have admired for many years her sagacious and health-minded ordering of food. Also, her ability to organize an incredibly wide-ranging group of volunteers of quite varied backgrounds, skills, volition, and just kind of withedness of what the project is about. Her ability to heave heavy sacks of onions or rice and cases of peanut butter, what she and I affectionately refer to as the aerobic food pantry, and her tremendous good humor through it all. But most of all, the way in which Jan provides personalized attention, respect, and care for the dignity and the pride and the attainment of each of the clients who come to the food pantry so that they can feed themselves and feed their families. They all ask for Jan, and they know that Jan will give them a totally non-sentimental but clear-eyed assessment of how the food pantry can help them and how also the food pantry can get them in touch with other resources that they need. So Jan is a marvelous citizen of this community and someone from whom I've learned a lot, and I look forward to you getting a chance to learn a lot also from Jan today. So please join me in welcoming Jan.
Thank you for the introduction, thank you for the invitation, and thank you for the toiletry drive. I don't know how aware you are of how things work in the state of Illinois, but in this state, people cannot use certain parts of their link card, the SNAP benefits, to get personal hygiene items. And cleanliness may be next to godliness, but it's also really expensive. And Medicaid does not cover dental care in any way, so the toothpaste and toothbrushes are especially welcome. Our recipients will be thrilled. Whenever we get this stuff, we put it out, people get to choose. So let me give you a little background. The Hyde Park Kenwood Food Pantry and the Hyde Park Kenwood Soup Kitchen, they're sort of two branches of the same agency, were started in the early 80s. After the steel mills closed, in that recession, and all the ancillary industries that depended on the steel mills started shutting down, all of a sudden there wasn't much employment for people who did not have a lot of education. And a surprising number of people who worked in those industries lived in Hyde Park because they could take the bus farther south, they could take the Illinois Central, now the Metro. They could get there and get back pretty inexpensively. At the same time, a lot of housing was going bad. Hyde Park used to be filled with SROs, single room occupancy buildings, where there are now townhouses. There used to be buildings where 300 people could live. So, and this was a perfect setup for a single person who had a job, not a very good job, but could pay for a small room and go to one of the neighborhood eateries if he or she didn't feel like fixing, meals him or herself. So with all of that, and unfortunately the rise of crack cocaine, there were a lot of people out on the street looking for help. Some of them were looking for help and taking it by force. Other people only looked as if they would do that. And the local churches and other congregations in the neighborhood were feeling pretty beleaguered, threatened if you're just a part-time person in a small church office, and also overwhelmed because you can't begin to meet the needs of the people who are coming to your door. So the Hyde Park Kenwood Interfaith Council got together and started the food pantry. There would be a place, all of the congregations could refer people, be open once a week, people could come, they could get groceries, and that everyone felt like by pooling resources, even if you couldn't solve the problem, you were at least putting on a pretty big Band-Aid. And I think that they thought that maybe need would go away. The next year they started a soup kitchen. That's at 46 in Greenwood, and that's still going. So there's always something that has kept people insecure when it comes to food, or making very, very hard choices when it comes to the money they do have. Housing or food? Medical care or food? The car I need to get to my job or food? That kind of juggling goes on all the time, and especially in Hyde Park with the very, very high housing prices. I know of more than one family who's lived over at that building at 56th and Cornell. That's mostly studios. One mother, 3 kids in a studio apartment, so they can go safely to Bret Harte. Not the best school, but it's a safe school. So this is the kind of calculus that our neighbors are doing all the time. And that's one reason that the food pantry has never felt like we could disband. We still get the numbers. So who do we serve? We started out with geographical boundaries, and we still have them, but we've been enjoying boundary creep down to 63rd Street, along with the University Police and University Housing. We have served more than one family of a staff member of the university, definitely, because again, the housing costs. And if you have kids, all that other stuff, even if they're going to public school, it's not as free as it sounds. We've gone north almost to 38th Street along the lake. There's a bunch of public housing and a bunch of food pantries that used to be there aren't. We don't see those folks very often, but if they come, we're there. And then we've expanded to include the entire 60615 zip code because when the Robert Taylor homes came down, their social services went with them for the most part. So that left a bunch of people west of Cottage Grove between, say, 47th and 51st Street, you know, in the lurch. So those are the folks that we try to get the word out to. Plenty of other people come by and we'll serve anybody once. And then we try to refer them to places closer to where they live. So you might be wondering, where do we get all this food? Because we serve, I guess, 140, 150 per week average. We buy it. That's how we get it. In essence, we buy it. The Greater Chicago Food Depository, you've probably heard of them. They're the two-ton gorilla of food giving. They're our, what's the name of it now? Feeding America affiliate. And so they, for this part of Illinois, they serve Cook County. And we are a member agency. So we have to follow those rules, and through them, we get federal food. We get food from USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. We get food from the FEMA program. I've never been able to figure out why. And occasionally, we get food from TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families. We got food through government state programs in years past, but I think they must have defunded them because we haven't seen anything from that. There's also always food available through the depository for free. Produce, for example. They've been really ramping up the efforts to make fresh produce available to their agencies for free, which is really, really great. And then they have sort of a changing array of food and limited qualities that they're offering for free. I'm not exactly sure why. They're not exactly forthcoming about why these things. So that can be a good thing or it can be a mistake. Like the 10 cases of wax beans. I've discovered there's a very limited appetite for wax beans. But at least it was free. I didn't waste our money on it. And then they have stuff that they call subsidized purchase. The food depository takes the money that you give to it if you're a contributor, and they have turned themselves into a very large food broker, basically. So they will buy enormous amounts of food, and then they will sell it to us at a subsidized price. So we are on a delivery program at the food depository once a month. And they limit us to 7,000 pounds per month. Fine, except I belong to the USDA program, which is an all or nothing program. You either do it or get whatever they give you in whatever quantities they feel like it, or not. And because it's through the USDA program, we can get frozen meat for free. I'm definitely in. So, the amount of poundage they give us is anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 pounds. So, and some of that 2,000 pounds, like the meat, yes. And then some of it, like the 650 pounds of juice. I wish I could have used that 650 pounds for something else. Although juice is popular, but it's not exactly nutritionally sound. So that's how we get the food. It's kind of a juggling act with ordering, trying to figure out, well, what do people like? What isn't really bad for them? Because also available largely for free is a lot of processed food. the Greater Chicago Food Depository is a clearinghouse for donations from corporations, either manufacturers like Kraft or grocery stores like Jewel, and so there is a lot of that kind of stuff. What I have not figured out is why federal money is being used to buy things like canned spaghetti with sauce and stuff. But anyway, I'll have to ask that question sometime. When there's somebody around to give me the answer. So we try to give away as much of that over the course of the month as we can. And after several years on the waiting list, we are now on the list for a second delivery of produce. Well, they call it produce, but it's also produce and sometimes random bread products. So, I guess it's this Friday we'll be getting something exciting, I hope. In our delivery, the last delivery at the beginning of the month, we did get a whole lot of red cabbage, which was wildly popular. We don't have much left, so I'm really hoping that we get some good produce to give away for the rest of the month. What else do we provide besides food? Well, when the Affordable Care Act passed, we got in navigators. So these are people who are not trying to sign people up for commercial health care. They were mostly aimed at helping people navigate the newly expanded eligibility requirements for Medicaid. And so they were there every week from, say, the end of September through March to sign people up. And they still come back periodically because occasionally there are people who just moved or just got out of prison and they need to sign up for health care. We now have a case manager who's there every week. And she's helping people. Some people, they come to see her even when they're not eligible to get food. She gives them homework. She's not there to do it for them. She tells them what steps they need to take, and then they come back with sort of a follow-up accountability thing. So that's been really great. How we operate during the day, we are a total client choice model. That means we bring everything that we're going to give away from our storage area to our distribution area. The storage area is all ours. The distribution area is this hallway. So we have to bring it all back. In fact, we have to bring more out than we're going to give away because we try to give away out of abundance. Because there are some people who, if they think they might deprive someone else of an item by taking a bunch, they won't take as much as they need. Now, not everybody is like that, obviously, but so we want to have a big pile of oatmeal because we give people as much oatmeal as they want. And they all know that they don't get to choose as much chicken as they want, but some things are rationed. So I think that's sort of, the federal stuff. Okay, so we need to be accountable. So we have everybody who comes, they have to sign their name along with their address, the number of people in their household, whether they receive food stamps or not. I have to ask that question every time. And if they're receiving food from the TANF program, how many kids under the age of 19 are in their household. So there is a little bit of paperwork before they go down the line to pick up their food. And then, I have to make sure that I send it in a timely basis. And that's kind of what happens. So I'm all ears for questions, although you had something you wanted to say.
Well, before we get to questions, Sergio, I think Jen alluded to this at the beginning of her talk, but just in case people don't know, Sarah Jo and the Divinity Student Association, who Wednesday lunch program, have been collecting toiletries for the last couple weeks in this red cooler. And now this really fancy brown box out here. And thank you to everybody who donated. We're not going to make Jan actually carry these. We're going to make her carry them.
Probably my super.
Right. So these are all just toiletries, as Jan mentioned, that are not part of the hunger programs. You don't have it in your budget to buy these things. So thank you to everybody who gave a toothbrush or deodorant or all these other, or puffs. I think those were brilliant. Whoever gave the puffs are here. And Sarah Jo, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, watch for more boxes out in the lobby. We're going to try to do some more drives this year, and especially for the hunger programs. So thanks for talking about the need, and yeah, and just we're gonna try to make this something that goes on. So at least every quarter, or maybe
Good
a
job.
couple.
Us.
Yeah, good job. And thanks to everybody who donated. Really appreciate it. Really well.
Oh, right. Yeah, how do we pay for it? Well, part of the proceeds from the Thanksgiving service at Rockefeller every year, the Interfaith Council gives to us. And we also once a year do a mailing. And that's how we raise our money.
How often can people come to get the food? Is it once a week or a set day or once a month?
Oh, once every 4 weeks.
Yeah, because I see people getting off the bus with carrier bags and I see them coming back and they've just blocked from the church. So.
Yeah, the soup kitchen, anybody can come, it doesn't matter where they live. But the food pantry, people can come once every 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And some people are not clear on that concept, so they're on the calendar month. Yeah.
In terms of volunteer recruitment and retention, how does that go? Even how many volunteers a week does it take to have this process? That's
Well, you can do it with 4, but it's really better if you don't. It depends on how many people come, which of course you never know in advance, because part of the federal thing is that you are not allowed to make people make appointments. Mm-hmm. You know, people should be able to come. So I would say that it's good to have a person doing the initial intake, one person who's getting the signatures, and maybe 5 people on the food. Because and even more on busy days, because we help people. Our building, the opposite of accessible. We go up the stairs to the first floor and then down the stairs to the basement. And while the church has real plans to put in an elevator, that is not happening anytime soon. So yeah, it's good to have an extra person, a runner for the bags to help people who can't get it up the stairs themselves.
How do you get word out for people who need to use this service?
We have done it any number of ways. And in fact, I was looking, and we used to have an announcement in the Hyde Park Herald, and it seems to have disappeared, so we have to bug them about that. But we've had people out leafleting. We put leaflets, especially for the people who are in 60615 and on the other side of Cottage. Just putting little flyers in the currency exchanges and the dry cleaners, people who don't find free food threatening to their own business. The corner groceries, not so much.
Do you ever?
And people find us on the internet.
Do you serve students?
Oh yeah, a ton of students, especially foreign students.
Foreign students at the university?
Yeah, some.
And that's sort of
Other institutions. Yeah. I mean, if you have children, it's hard.
Do the Sounders still run that free store of stuff that was right next to LSTC?
Not that I've heard of. a giveaway, a clothing
It was
giveaway?
like, yeah, it was clothing and dishes and random objects.
No,
toys.
no, if they have that, I've never heard of it.
It's still there.
It's still there?
Yep.
I know that when the local elementary schools have had rummage sales, they've sent vouchers over so that our folks could take the vouchers and just pick up stuff at the rummage sales.
Are you talk about taking names and people leave their addresses, so you're assuming that the people who use your service have reliable housing, they have addresses?
People.
Do you have,
Well,
do you
I don't-
have people who are not adequately housed in your program?
You know, because we don't ask people their address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We ask them where they stay, because that's really different
Yeah,
in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Some people are very housing insecure, and so their mail goes somewhere that has nothing to do with where they actually lay their heads at night. And some people are kind of going from place to place as their family and friends can stand them. Some of the guys who live in the Midway come. And you know, if people don't have to have an address to get food, and some people just make up addresses. And I've lived here long enough that I know. You know, there's a lot of people living in the hospital. Yeah. Yes.
Recently read that there are a number of cities around the country that are making it more difficult to do work like food pantries and soup kitchens. Is there anything like that happening in Chicago or in the state of Illinois? Any new regulations or things like that?
It's a lot harder to start a food pantry or a soup kitchen than it used to. I'm glad that, you know, I'm not starting from scratch. Yeah, there are definitely rules about having to undergo food sanitation courses, especially if you're running a cooked food place. And, you know, in some ways, though, it's gotten easier now that they've allowed food trucks, because conceivably you could put a soup kitchen on wheels now. Of course, there are all regulations and stuff. But for us, we get inspected by the food depository. And the state of Illinois is supposed to inspect us on an annual basis as well, but I haven't seen them for 5 years. Perhaps because we're only open on Saturdays.
You're not likely there,
I don't know. I haven't called them up to ask them where they were.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Yeah. So, and this may be beyond your pay grade. It's not what you came to talk about necessarily.
No, I'm here
so, but I know that there's new students here, and the experience of people on the sidewalk on 57th Street asking you for money for food.
Right.
Because you are somebody who knows how food works in this community, when people approach you with that request, what do you do? Is that okay to ask you?
No, but you know, part of the thing is they don't ask me anymore because I never did it. You know, I've decided, and this is a personal thing for everybody, and it's subject to change, and there's always going to be attention. But I've decided that I am not going to give money on the street. Okay, so I've bought people meals, but I've not reached into my purse, gotten out my wallet, and opened it up and given people money. I just don't do that. But on the other hand, I don't pretend that the people who are asking for money aren't there, you know?
There's no, as you know, like voucher program. I've lived in communities where on that occasion you can hand somebody a voucher for.
There was at one time, and then there grew up a lively trade, black market and vouchers. So after that happened, the people who had organized it gave it up, and no one has stepped in to do that. Yeah.
In the time you've been there, what would you characterize as the constants in the clientele and what's changed?
Oh yeah. Okay. what the constants in the clientele, well, there's some of them, individuals in the clientele. I've seen one lady, you know, over the years become a grandma. But a lot of people have left, partly because there's, they might be dead because of the low life expectancy for people who live close to the edge, basically, especially the men. And also the rising prices of housing has driven people away. It's really hard to find large, inexpensive apartments around here. It really is. That wasn't true when the food pantry started in the early 80s. It was you could still find them. What has changed is actually awareness of health issues. People who have diabetes seem to know what it really means. Some people ask for brown rice. People are aware of blood pressure. People I think, are way more health conscious than they used to be, which really surprised me when I first started. Also, it used to be that maybe a third of the people who came for help were receiving food stamps, and now it's over half. You know, people who are receiving food stamps are not getting enough. They can't make it on what they get. Last November, a whole bunch of folks I know from the pantry, most of whom are receiving disability, they got cut down to $16 a month.
16?
16, 1/6. No, that doesn't go very far. So, yeah. And the thing is, you know, because of this form everybody has to sign, I am supposed to ask people every time they come, are you receiving SNAP benefits? The state of Illinois needs to do this. And some people just get so unhappily defensive. Yes, but I just couldn't do it this month. I feel so bad, but yeah.
Do you ever refuse people?
No. No, we only refuse people if they come back the next week. You know, we are pretty serious about the frequency thing. We'll cut people slack after 3 weeks if they're not a habitual offender. But yeah.
So you don't get, you don't get individuals coming by with random bags of food. It's all coming from these larger.
Yeah, tis the season for random food drives.
So what do you wish people would know as Thanksgiving and the holidays come up about their random donations?
We wish that they would give us cash. Because so many of these random, I swear, every single food drive contains at least one, sometimes multiple old dusty cans of water chestnuts. We are the recipients of aspirational grocery shopping. Someone will think, I love Thai food. I'm the kind of person who's going to cook Thai food. What they are is the kind of person who buys the ingredients for cooking Thai food and gives it to a food pantry to which no Thai people come. And don't even get me started on gefilte fish. Although I have to say, when a congregation, which shall remain nameless, instead of giving us saltines like we requested, gave us matzah that was kosher for last Passover at Yom Kippur. People went for it. They took the matzah.
Matzah's good. And it never goes bad.
Yeah.
You're on your own now.
But you know, when you have few comforts in your life, food that you recognize and want to eat, that should be one.
Are there best sellers in that capacity? Like what things do people go, oh, I want that? Is there any?
Frozen chicken, frozen whole chicken, definitely. Chicken, people really like the chicken. People would really like cooking oil. People like the juice, but I'm not asking for it. Yeah, and when we couldn't get regular spaghetti, all we could get was the whole wheat spaghetti. People don't, the folks who come, they're not crazy about oddly shaped pasta. And by oddly shaped, I mean rotini. People like spaghetti. Spaghetti is an important festival dish. Spaghetti and meatballs. Yes. Rotini and meatballs? No. Yes.
Do you guys have any efforts? I mean, I know you mentioned that you guys are getting produce now, but like, is there any emphasis on getting like fresh, like vegetables and things like that? Or do you, what's the process? Or is there any sort of intentionality behind that?
Well, I order as much as I can get. You know, the food depository, they have a menu. I have a limited window of opportunity to order from that particular menu. And sometimes we're disappointed. Like this month, they pulled 125 pounds of cauliflower from the order because it didn't look good. I guess it looked good on Friday when I placed the order, and by Monday or Tuesday when they were loading up the truck, they didn't feel like they could give it to us. So you never know. I mean, that is the big problem with produce. It is perishable. It's really perishable, and by the time it's donated to the food depository, it's a little more perishable than most. Yeah.
So you've mentioned a couple of times that you're emphasizing getting more produce, and you've also talked about these drives and other medical care. What do you see as the food pantry's role in, beyond just giving healthy options, promoting a culture of wellness or a culture of health within a community?
I think that for us, we have had health fairs on occasion. You know, because even with ACA, there are people who are underserved, or they're afraid of going to a doctor's office. And when people have offered to do health fairs where they'll take your blood pressure and that kind of stuff, you know, I always say yes. But in terms of, I guess for us, we see our role as offering the people who come a chance to pick out the food that they want, that assuming we have anything we want, that they want. And to give them options, because if they get food from us, that frees up actual cash for other things that they want. So for example, we always have a lot of people coming in September because they've spent their money on their kids going back to school. One of the biggest Septembers we ever had was the school strike, because a whole bunch of part-time workers didn't get to work. So, you know, they were, you know, the crossing guards, you know, all those people, yeah, they were in trouble. Because their kids, you know, were still going to school. They just didn't have any money. So I guess I see us as offering options to people, because if they take our food, that means they have more cash in their pocket that they can use for whatever they want.
Well, I think Jen and I will talk more about maybe what the Divinity School community can fruitfully donate in the future. And thank you for coming.
We thank you for listening to or viewing our podcast. For more information and for other podcasts, please see our website, divinity.uchicago.edu/podcasts. Copyright, the University of Chicago Divinity School.